I used to think dolls were just harmless decorations until the night I watched one turn its head toward me, on its own. I still remember the sound it made, like something inside the plastic was breathing. Before we start, please tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I might find a terrifying story that happened exactly where you live. And before we begin, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, leave a like, and comment, so you don't miss more stories like this one. Trust me, you'll want to hear this until the end, because the ending will absolutely shock you. I grew up in a quiet town where people didn't really talk about ghosts or hunt. We weren't superstitious, and my family especially didn't believe in anything paranormal. That changed the year my little sister Emily got sick and my aunt came to stay with us. She traveled a lot, collected antiques, strange trinkets, and things she claimed had history. When she arrived, she brought with her an old suitcase packed with fabrics, candles, carved boxers, and what stood out the most, a porcelain doll wrapped in a red cloth. Its dress was faded blue silk, its tiny shoes looked hand-stitched, and its glass eyes were the dullest shade of gray I'd ever seen. The doll looked ancient, fragile, and wrong. My aunt set it on the dresser in the guest room she was staying in. I remember pausing at the door, staring at Italiana. Its face was cracked, ever so slightly along the chin. But what bothered me most was how alive the eyes looked, like someone was trapped behind them, staring out. I told my aunt it creeped me out. She laughed, as if I were being dramatic. "It's just old," she said. "You're letting your imagination run wild." But that night, when I walked past the hallway outside the guest room, I noticed something strange. The guest room door was open, and the doll was facing the doorway. I was almost sure my aunt had left it turned toward the wall earlier. I shrugged it off. Maybe she moved it. Maybe my memory was off. But then the noises started. First, it was a faint tapping, a sort of repetitive tick. Tick, tick, like porcelain hitting wood. It came from inside the guest room. At first, I blamed my aunt. Maybe she was rearranging things, or the house was settling. But one night I walked by and saw my aunt fast asleep on the bed. Turned toward the wall while the tapping continued. Soft, rhythmic, coming from somewhere near the dresser. I stepped closer, telling myself I was being stupid. Ten, primera sa, W, italiano. The doll's head, which earlier had been tilted slightly down, was now raised, directly facing me. Its eyes were fully open, wider than I remembered, almost unnaturally wide. Something in my brain said, that wasn't like that before. I backed out of the room and shut the door. The next morning, at breakfast, I mentioned it again to my aunt. She frowned thoughtfully this time instead of laughing it off. "It used to belong to a girl," she said slowly. "In one of the villages I visited years ago. The family said she loved the doll more than anything, wouldn't sleep without it. So why give it away?" I asked. My aunt hesitated. "The girl died. Fever. They didn't want the doll anymore. Said it was too painful to keep around." I felt a chill crawl up my arms. "And you thought that was a good souvenir?" She shrugged. "It's part of history." She paused, then added with a strange look, "Besides, you shouldn't be afraid of a doll." But I was, and things only got worse. A few days later, my aunt left for a weekend trip, leaving the doll behind in the guest room. She told me not to touch it, as if I needed that reminder. I didn't even want to look at it. But that night, around 2 a.m., I heard something that made my stomach turn. A soft creak from down the hallway, followed by the slow shifting of something sliding across wooden flooring. I froze in my bed. Then I heard another creak, this time much closer. I sat up and stared at my open bedroom doorway. I knew I should get up and close it, but every instinct in me screamed not to move. Ten, primera, sa, W, italiano. At the very edge of the hallway, just barely lit by the dim nightlight, something stood. Small, white, motionless. Te, dal. It was positioned as if it had just stepped out of the guest room, its cracked porcelain face tilted upward toward me. Its eyes those gray, lifeless ICND. to reflect the faint hallway glow, making them look glassy and wet. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My breath locked in my throat as I slowly reached for the lamp beside my bed. My hand shook violently as I clicked it on. The hallway lit up. The doll was gone. Not moved. Not fallen. Not lying somewhere. Just gone. The next sound I heard came from behind me. A soft, tiny tap. Tap. Tap on my bedroom floor. I whipped around. Nothing. At least, nothing I could see. But then something brushed the side of my bed light, like someone dragging a fingertip across the blanket. I bolted out of the room and ran downstairs, refusing to go back until sunrise. When my aunt returned Sunday night, I demanded she take the doll with her. She seemed confused. I brought her upstairs to show her where it had stood. When she opened the guest room door, she gasped. The doll was sitting neatly back on the dresser, exactly where she'd left it before leaving for the weekend. She insisted I must have imagined everything, but I know what I saw, what I heard, what touched my bed. And the worst part, before she left again the next morning, my aunt said something that still haunts me. You know, the family didn't say the doll was painful to look at. They said it kept showing up in places the girl used to play, like Se va sentir, ready to leave. My aunt chuckled. I wonder what it sees in you. I've always been skeptical about anything paranormal. I am the kind of person who needs to see something with my own eyes before I believe it. But the night my best friend Caleb and I found that doll inside the abandoned house on Brea Ridge, that night changed everything I thought I knew. We weren't supposed to be there. The house was scheduled for demolition after sitting empty for years. Local kids told stories about its shadow figures, cold spots, strange noisy spot. We figured it was nothing more than rumors. We were idiots looking for a thrill, and breaking into an old house sounded exciting. It was just past 11 p.m. when we climbed through the broken window. The air was stale, filled with dust and the faint smell of mold. Our flashlights cut through the darkness in narrow beams, revealing peeling wallpaper, broken furniture, and scattered debris. It looked like whoever lived there had left in a hurry, but the weirdest thing was how quiet the place felt. No wind, no creaking floors, no insects, just a suffocating stillness, like the whole house was holding its breath. "Let's check upstairs," Caleb whispered. We moved carefully up the staircase, trying not to disturb the rotting wood. Upstairs was colder, much colder. I could see my breath in front of me, even though it was warm outside. We walked into what looked like a child's bedroom. Everything was a mess. A cracked mirror, overturned chairs, pages torn from books, tiny shoes scattered across the floor. And then my flashlight stopped on something sitting in the corner. A doll, not porcelain cloth-bodied, with a painted wooden face, long black yarn hair, and a faded yellow dress. But what made my skin crawl was how neatly it sat among the chaos, like someone placed it there intentionally. "Creepy," Caleb muttered. "Take a picture." He stepped closer to it, but the moment he pointed his phone at the doll, the air shifted. I felt it more than heard it, a faint vibration in the floorboards. Then a soft sound rose in the darkness. A hum, a childlike hum, high-pitched, slow, coming from somewhere in the room. Caleb turned to me, eyes wide. "Dude, tell me, that's you." "It's not me." The humming grew louder, filling the room with a strange, off-key melody, a lullaby that didn't quite sound right. It was coming from the corner, from the doll. We both stumbled backward, barely able to breathe. Caleb whispered, "No way, no way, no way." He raised his flashlight at it, and the doll's head jerked to the side. Not a little twitch, a full, sudden snap toward us. Both of us screamed and bolted from the room. In our panic, we tripped over toys and debris, slamming into the hallway wall. I could still hear the humming behind us faster now. Almost excited, we ran downstairs, but halfway down the staircase, the humming stopped. Silence. We froze. Then something creaked at the top of the stairs. I turned my head slowly, even though everything in me screamed not to look. The doll was standing upright on the top step. Standing. Its wooden face angled downward at us, yarn hair hanging limp around its shoulders, its head tilted unnaturally far to one side like a broken marionette. Caleb choked out, "That's impossible." The doll lifted one small arm just a few inches as if reaching toward us. I grabbed Caleb and dragged him down the stairs. We sprinted toward the window we came through, but as we reached the living room, something slammed behind us. The staircase door, one I hadn't even noticed before, had shut on its own. We crawled through the window, scraping our arms on the glass. Once we were outside, we ran until we reached the streetlights. Only then did we stop, gasping for breath. We didn't speak for the rest of the night. The next morning, we returned in daylight. I don't know why we should be stayed far away, but we needed proof of what we saw. We needed to convince ourselves it wasn't just fear and darkness messing with our minds. The house felt less threatening in the sun, but the coldness lingered. When we reached the child's bedroom, the doll was no longer in the corner. It was lying in the middle of the room. Face down, the yellow dress was covered in dust, and its arms were bent backward like someone had twisted them. Even though I was terrified, I reached down and touched it. It felt warm. I yanked my hand back. "Caleb, this thing is..." But he wasn't listening. He was staring at the wall behind me. I turned. There were drawings ones we hadn't noticed the night before. Dozens of them drawn by a child's hand. Every picture showed the same thing. A girl holding a doll. But in each one, the girl's face was scribbled out with thick black strokes, as if the child drawing it had been angry or afraid. In the last picture, the girl was lying on the floor, and the doll was standing over her. Caleb backed toward the door. "We're done. We're actually done. Let's go." I didn't argue. Before we left, I glanced one last time at the doll. Something in me wanted to kick it, smash it, throw it out the window, but I didn't dare touch it again. 3 days later, the house was demolished. I thought that was the end of it. But last week, as I was heading to my car before work, I saw something sitting on my front porch. A doll. Cloth body. Wooden face. And when I got closer, I swear I heard a faint hum just for a moment coming from inside the house behind me. A lullaby. The same one, the one she sang in the dark. I worked the late shift at a small museum in my town, a place most people didn't even know existed. It wasn't fancy, mostly just old clothes, tools, bits of local history, and a few dusty dioramas of what life looked like here a century ago. But there was one exhibit visitors always asked about, even though no one liked standing near it. The doll in the glass case. I didn't know much about it when I first started working there. The curator simply told me, "Don't touch the case. Don't open it. Ever." He didn't smile. He didn't laugh. He said it as if I were being given a security protocol. At first, I brushed it off as superstition. But the doll itself felt off. It stood inside a wooden-framed glass cabinet at the end of a narrow hallway. A tall, Victorian-style porcelain doll, dressed in a lace gown that was too pale to be white and too gray to be ivory. Its hair was human, yes. Real human hair, and its face was expressionless, except for the slightest upward tilt of its lips. Not quite a smile. More like the beginning of one. The plaque beneath it read Anna 1891, donated anonymously. That's it. No story. No explanation. Just a date and a name. But what unnerved me were the stories people whispered. Visitors claimed that when they turned their backs, the doll's expression changed. Some said the pupils in her glass eyes looked like they moved. One woman swore the doll had been facing to the left one moment and straight ahead the next. I didn't believe any of it. Until the night the alarms went off. It was a stormy evening, and the museum was empty. Rain hammered the windows. Lightning flickered every few seconds, and the wind moaned through the gaps in the old wooden frame of the building. I was doing my final walkthrough before closing when the security system blared through the halls. Glass break, East Wing. My stomach dropped. The East Wing was where the doll's case stood. I sprinted down the dim corridor, my flashlight beam trembling as I ran. When I reached the exhibit, the alarm suddenly cut off, plunging the museum into a dead, humming silence. The glass case was intact. Not a single crack. But the doll, it wasn't standing. It was sitting. Her porcelain hands were placed neatly in her lap, her dress fanned out around her, like someone had carefully posed her. I froze. The air felt wrung heavy, charged. Every instinct screamed to get out, but I forced myself to step closer. "Hello," I whispered, even though I didn't know what I expected to answer. Thunder cracked through the building. The lights flickered, and then I saw something at the base of the display case, small, curled, pale. A piece of lace. From her dress, inside the locked case. I checked the latch. Still sealed. Still locked. No sign of tampering. I backed away slowly, my breath shallow. That night after closing, I couldn't shake the image of the doll sitting perfectly still, as if she were pretending to sleep, or waiting. The next few nights, I kept my distance, but weird things kept happening. The alarms would randomly trip in the East Wing. The lights in that hallway flickered constantly, and once, during a power outage, I heard the faintest creak of wood coming from a case, like someone shifting their weight on an old floorboard. The worst part, every morning, when the curator arrived before me, he said the same thing. "You didn't open the case, right?" I always said no. But the way he looked at me, it was as if he was expecting me to say yes. A week into this, I confronted him. "I think someone's breaking in," I said. "The doll moves." He stared at me for a long time before answering. "She's been doing that since the day she arrived." That sentence alone made my blood run cold. "She?" I repeated. "Anna?" he said quietly. "The girl who owned the doll died young. Fever. Right after her parents locked the doll in a chest because she wouldn't stop talking to it. Someone found the chest decades later and donated it anonymously. We keep it sealed because we don't know what else to do with it." I wanted to quit right then and there, but things only escalated. 2 nights later, the alarm screamed again. Glass break, East Wing. My chest tightened as I ran down the hall. When I turned the corner, every light went out at once. Pitch black. I fumbled with my flashlight, hands shaking, until I finally got it to flick on. The case was open. The door hung wide, glass unbroken, latch still locked as if it had passed right through it. The doll was gone. I nearly dropped the flashlight. Then I saw a faint shadow move to my left. I swung the beam around, and the doll was standing in the middle of the hallway, facing me. Its head slightly tilted, its pale porcelain feet pointed inward like a shy child preparing to speak. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." Then something behind me creaked, a slow, dragging sound, like fabric sliding across the floor. I didn't look back. I ran. I didn't stop until I burst outside into the rain, soaked and shaking. I called the curator. He arrived within minutes, but when we went back into the hallway, the doll was gone. The next morning, the case was closed again, locked. and the doll stood inside exactly where she had originally been placed. But now, her head was tilted slightly downward as if watching the spot where I had stood the night before. I quit the next day. 3 months later, they replaced me with another night guard. He lasted 4 days. The curator won't tell anyone what happened to him. And the doll? She's still there, standing quietly behind the glass, waiting, watching. Some nights, if you pass by the museum after closing, people say you can see her through the window. And sometimes if you look long enough, they say she looks back. If you made it to the end, tell me in the comments. Have you ever owned a doll, toy, or object that made you uneasy? And what city are you watching from? I might uncover a terrifying true story from your hometown next. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, leave a like, and share this video so you never miss more real horror stories that keep you up at night. Sleep well. If you can.